Welcome to my podcast show, Nichelle Anderson, Short Stories and Beyond. My name is Nichelle Anderson. I'm your host for my podcast show, where I focus on my passion of writing short stories, delivering the message that I wish for my listeners and my readers of my work to take away from that perspective and use it to the greater good. So this week we will continue on releasing the complete short story of my podcast. And for this month, I just decided, like last year, when I wrote out this particular podcast, is to provide the short story. And then thereafter, starting next month and most of the season, which is from September of the year going into May of the next year is my season. From September to May, mostly I will release clip snippet, I would say. And you will see that uploaded in the title. And that's part of the short story. To get the full story, if you consider to be a patron of this podcast, and you can get that information by clicking the link to my Patreon page, where you'll get access to the full short story. So in the clip snippets that I will eventually start doing starting next month in October, it'll be enough of the story, but not too much that you know exactly what's going to happen at the end or what's next. Some things that I reveal that you will never know if you don't become a patron. I keep that on lockdown for those that want to become a patron. So that's basically how this podcast is set up. And this podcast is based on my book, Mitsrayim, that I wrote over 20 years ago, and produced theatrical productions from that, from stage, plays, a short film. And it has expanded to now a podcast. And I think it's a wonderful landscape to introduce people that normally I wouldn't meet face to face, but podcasts, I'm able to broadcast this all over the world so people can connect to the story that changed my life, that led me to be a writer and so forth. And also these stories will prepare for what I'm still in the process of working on, which is the stage play, to return the MOLIAE stage play, which, by the way, MOLIAE stands for Moments of Love in Ancient Egypt. We are calling that the prestige return of MOLIAE stage play, where for the first time I will bring most of the characters that I'm talking about now in this podcast and from the book. In the book, it was over 50 characters. And I'm not saying I'm going to bring all of those on stage, but most of those big names that I talked about in the book will be on stage, and you will get to get a feel for them and get connected with them through this podcast, through my short stories. So this particular podcast, Nichelle Anderson Short Stories and Beyond, is mostly stemming from MOLIAE. So most of those short stories are on that time frame, but I do plan to have shorter stories. So I wanted to kind of give that quick intro for anyone just joining in and following me for the first time, and to make sure that you get that intro there, and for me to explain it as current as possible, because things change. Let's go ahead and get started with this podcast show entitled, for episode 33, the last Monday of this September, that I'm releasing the short story, the full short story, Truth Stand Tall Amongst Falsehood of Thee. So this particular segment, again, will focus on what we started in the beginning of my return of season 2, dealing with the Orion. So we are going to catch up with Nontu. Okay, we found out in the first episode for this month, starting out, that the elders of his people basically looking for him, right? Because something happened to Ecko, an uprising, and King Mahlon was a part of that as he make his raid back to the full stage after surviving the wounds from the war. So let's go ahead and do a quick recap on this. And also, right quick, at times I will release a YouTube video that goes with this podcast. So to help me and my subscribers of my MOLIAE channel is to subscribe to as well to the MOLIAE YouTube channel. That way when I release it, those video clips, you can be able to get that notification and get the experience, okay? And do not do it all the time, but I do it sometime, because dealing with, editing, post-editing, relating to film takes some time. And I want to make sure that I release these podcasts weekly, as I indicated people that's following me to be committed to that. But go ahead and do that. Subscribe to our MOLIAE YouTube channel. And by the way, if you're on Facebook, subscribe to MOLIAE Facebook page as well, okay? All right, let's go ahead and do the recap for last week. That was episode 32, entitled With Moments of Love in Mitsrayim. So the book was named Mitsrayim, and then the production was named Moments of Love in Ancient Egypt. I'm going to tell you a story about that right quick. And when I first decided to do the stage, because I always saw Mitsrayim as a movie, right? It's an epic movie, because I had all these experiences as I was writing the book freehand, okay? I mean, I didn't have really no plan. It was just coming through me. And I had to come up with a title. And I had to figure out how I'm going to talk about history and then talk about, all the things that was going in there. And it just came to me to name it that way, because there were moments and the song and the music that helped me to get all of these, what we call memories out, in a sense, helped me to put it together. So that's where I got the word moments. And then of course it's love, because really in humanity, true love of someone else or other people in a healthy capacity, that's key, brings us all together and brings that fellowship, right, that we seek, that we aim for. So anyway, and of course it's about Egypt, and I want people to connect of the history of that name and not to kind of confuse them in a way. And so that's how that title came about, Moments of Love in Ancient Egypt. And then when I looked back, it fitted so perfectly. Then over time, when I started doing other productions, I noticed that the title was a bit long, so that's how I abbreviated, and now it's MOLIAE, MOLIAE. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that chic? Okay, just had to touch on that. And so that's the history of coming up, how we're going to frame that. But it all stems for the book of Mitsrayim. But going forward, to touch on that point, last year when I came up with the season, most of those episodes were political, governing, intrigue, adventure type thing, in the sense of trying to find out who did what, where, why, and all of that. And really didn't get a chance to spend that quality time of relationships, right? Good, divine, solidified, caring, respectful relationships. They do exist. We just don't see it a lot, but they do exist. It doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like on the outside or inside. At the end of the day, we're talking about healthy relationship when two people love one another, respect one another. It's a beautiful thing, and it's good to see that. And so last week I decided to go back to the home of the heart of MOLIAE, which is Moments of Love in Ancient Egypt. And Mitsrayim is basically about a true story, two people that are meant to be. And in this case, we're focusing on King Mahlon and Queen Hagar, where before they go back to the full stream of governing, spending some quality time together. And so that's what was last episode, where they were at the Shambass Palace. Now I bring up the Shambass Palace because it was the first palace I talked about when I wrote the book. It was the first thing I saw, the first vision that I saw. And it's a palace, or a place of seclusion, but also romantic in a way, and just a place to unwind and to enjoy each other time, right? I think that's what life is at the end of the day, is to enjoy the experience of the time of being someone else, So that's basically what last week was about. And they talked about Rulen. And it seems to me, as I'm putting this together week by week, because that's how I do it, it's not really pre-planned. I set it out, it comes in my mind, and I sit down and I write it, and bam, I record it, and there it goes, right? So MOLIAE is like entwined into my soul and my spirit. Typing on that, Rulen seems to be particular character that would definitely return back into this saga of this timeline. So go check that out. That's episode 32. And I keep it professional. I keep it on point and tasteful. Okay? So they're just saying very good, loving, encouraging words. And plus dropping a little things on what could come going forward. Okay? All right. So begin for this week of my season 2 podcast show, Nichelle Anderson's Short Stories and Beyond, for this week episode 33, entitled Truth Stand Tall Amongst Falsehood of Thee. Opening scene. Deep in the south of the Sudan, we see fields of green plants and trees as the Abbyass above continue to run through the day of old to a new day. Sounds of the wind continued to bring forth a sense of a purpose, to begin again than before, to create one's own accord of anew. Trees abound flurry as the wind surrounding the tall building of hard stone red clay. We see Nontu finishing adjusting his attire to start another moment forward into the mission of leader in the next regime deep in the Sudan. He felt keen to the breeze of a new wind against his face. Nontu smiled as he was told of King Mahlon do duty against Ecko, leaving the opening to another to stand. As Nontu was about to reach for his early Apsu day drink, there were guards entering his area of occlude. He motioned them to enter and sit before him for counsel. One of the guards looked elated while the other four concerned. Nontu spoke first to the ones that sided with him against Ecko. New movement is in the south of the Sudan. We will wait until Kingo to signal our position forth. One of the guards that looked concerned spoke before the others. We should move one step behind Apsu, days forward. The tribal leaders of the south are a different cycle of old and new. Nontu. I have a way. Guards amongst them started to discuss possibilities of what will happen going forward. Nontu took a sip of his drink, but he felt elated nonetheless. Still, even among the few that did not see the promise of winning for what the esteem of the style of Mitsrayim could bring them. In what seemed like a moment in feeling elated, Nontu immediately felt the presence of uncertainty, of fear. But his years in military combat subdued the unknown feeling that he didn't see but felt, to remain in the presence of his prestige position of power. Then suddenly, something made him look up towards the hall entrance leading to him. She appeared out of nowhere with a shawl covering her hair and face, dressed in the dark maroon Kingo-raised colors of her attire, with only the rings in her ear and around her ankles could be heard bangling into a rhythm of wind afar. Nontu knew as she approached with only one of his guards behind her that she was on their side from the rest of the Sudan. She was a secret spy in disguise. She had markings of gray and yellow design to her left cheek that showed of her tribal heritage. She smiled that glowed of her Nubian skin in the glimmering incoming Aspu rays. She took 1 foot closer to Nontu. She was holding a basket of fruit and berries. She reached inside to uncover a hidden message written on papyrus and handed it to Nontu. It is for you, the man for Orion, is it so? She asked, beaming with eyes deep as those as Nubian pearls of the sea. He grinned. Indeed. Tell your father he has done well. We will meet up in the coming Apsu within 3. She nodded before turning to leave in disguise to deliver the message to her father, with one of the same guards to lead her to the side entrance. Nontu opened the papyrus, and for all of his years in training, the rush of uncertainty moments before came in like waves of water upon him. As he clenched the papyrus, rolled up scroll that contained the message written in Akkadian language, took a long breath before facing his trusted guards. They slowly stood up. What is your command, Nontu? One of the fearless spoke up as he held his sword ready to debark on the unknown. Nontu, pausing before responding, close out the eastern end of the border with the Key tribe as support. For followers of Apsu will rise soon. Aketo, as you wish, Nontu. The 4 guards said hurriedly, leaving Nontu alone in his enclave, and thought to his next move before him for the star of Mitsrayim. End scene.